All right, everyone, let's get this done. I saw that door open in the background. It was bothering me. All right. I hope everybody is doing well. It is the live show, Unfound Live, for what is it today? December 16th, 2020. I hope everybody is doing well out there. As always, I bring a potpourri of topics to discuss tonight. In addition, got some questions to answer from some inquisitive listeners and viewers who submitted questions to me earlier today. And of course, before everything is over tonight, we will go over this Friday's episode coming out 2 days from now. I'm doing good. It was a very rainy, windy day here in Clearwater. In fact, a storm blew through here, and I heard allegedly that there was a tornado out there somewhere. I don't know how much damage it did or anything, but if you're looking like at the radar map on the Weather Channel or whatever, this whole big of yellow and orange and dark red just kind of came right from the west and went right through here. We did not get the worst of it here where I live. But, yeah, definitely an ugly day out there. But I was inside all day working on a variety of things. Had a couple phone calls that I needed to listen to and take notes. And already I'm working on next Friday's episode, the update episode number 7. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about that before everything is done tonight. And of course, on top of everything else, my dad is here. Some of you requested or asked, shouldn't say requested, asked if he was going to make an appearance tonight. I asked him about that. He said he was not interested in doing that. He is otherwise indisposed, and so he does not feel like being on camera tonight. So that's the way that goes. I asked him, and he said he was not going to make an appearance. So there you go. So who is in here before we go? But he is here, and I'll get into that in just a moment. But who is in here? Hello, Joyce Rivatuzo is first tonight. Hello, Joyce. We haven't talked in a while, Joyce. Hope you're doing well. Karen, Delane, Laura, Carrie, Paula, Eileen, Delane says, I'm finally free. I don't have a 5-year-old grandchild and a 4-year-old niece for the second night after having my grandson for over 3 weeks. Oh my, Delane. Okay, well, good to see you. Jasmine, Kathy, hello, Cherie. A little bit, what's up? 30 in the AM. I'm so sad. Okay. Cherie, Louise. Dad's doing good. Thanks for asking, Louise. Hello, Chanda. She makes a live show. Well, good to see you, Chanda. Chanda. Still Kathy rubbing it in. Still beautiful here in Southern California. Tammy, we'll be cooking a Christmas turkey. I will not be cooking a Christmas turkey. However, the plan is for my dad and I to go over to my brother's on Christmas Day. Thank you for asking, Tammy. Louise says, come on, Dad. I'm from the UK. Yes, you are, Louise. I remember from last week. Carrie, I will tell him, Carrie, that all of you said hi. That's very kind. Hello, Becky. Concha, 30 degrees. Okay, Cherie, 30 degrees in Texas today. All right, Anne and Stephanie, thank you all for tuning in tonight. As you were watching tonight, some of you know that I mention this every week. If you are watching, please give this video a thumbs up, give it a like, so we can appear on the YouTube algorithms for anybody who may want to come across any true crime information, any true crime shows. I continue to believe that Unfound Live is one of the only shows out there that is live, that involves true crime, that is a weekly program here on YouTube. I continue even 3 years later. It's still unique. Go figure. I could have never expected that when I first started doing Unfound Live, but it still is. But so please remember, whatever device you're using, make sure to give it a thumbs up and like this video if you like what you're hearing. Stephanie Louise says, raining and windy 2 a.m. in UK. That's kind of the way it was here today, Louise. Carrie, 27 degrees in Missouri. Oh, my. Okay. Hello, Jody and Twinkle. So like I said, my dad is here. Last week, the morning after you last saw me on the live show, I flew from Tampa to Pittsburgh on Spirit Airlines. I would say the jet was 1/3 full, maybe. And had to wear the mask the whole time, which was, hated it. Dad picked me up. We went up to his place. We packed up his Jeep, what is it? Cherokee, Grand Cherokee. And then the next morning, we left at about 7 in the morning. And we were making good time until we got to Jacksonville. There were 2 wrecks. I would not call them huge wrecks, but they were wrecks in which most of the lanes were blocked off. So that really slowed us down twice in a row. And then on top of that, for some reason, my Waze app on my phone, usually when you get to Jacksonville, you go west on the 10 for a little bit, and then you cut down like the diagonal on the 301 to get over to the 75. You can look at the map for this. Instead, the Waze took us the whole way south through Jacksonville, the whole way down to Daytona Beach, and then across Florida at a diagonal on the 4, which of course goes through Orlando. Did not expect that, but that's what Waze told us to do. I have never gone that way before either way. So it was a little bit of a surprise. And, but that's what it said to do. That was going to be the quickest way. So that's what I did. So that was a little bit unexpected. Made it all, but because of the wrecks and everything, we didn't get here till maybe left at 7 in the morning, got here about 20 till 1 in the morning. So 7, 12, 17, like 17 hours and 40 minutes, which is pretty good considering the wrecks, considering that with his vehicle, we stopped more than usual to get gas than I would ever have to do in my car. So that was pretty good, even though it kind of went out of our way, it seems a little bit. It's a pretty good time considering everything that happened. And I've made that drive many times now since really 2016, but I was feeling it Saturday and I was feeling it Sunday, and it showed on how I played disc golf on Sunday morning. It was sore, still a little kind of dazed a little bit, and it surely showed. But that's how he made it here. And I do this show from his bedroom. In fact, the bed that he sleeps in is like right here. And on Monday, we went down to Estera and I played some disc golf. Tonight, we went out for seafood. And he's doing his thing, and I'm doing my thing. Unfound work continues. A little bit says 45 here in southern Oklahoma. Okay, a little bit. Delane, I know what you mean, Carrie. Nasty cold here. Chanda, like the CH in Charlie, and ending like Panda. Chanda. Okay. Sorry, we won't be seeing your dad after hearing about him so often, but I understand not wanting to be on camera. I asked him. He's perfectly allowed. Raising. Hello, Raising. Valerie, what's going on? A little bit. Do I have a fancy mask or the regular ones? I have an Iron Maiden mask a little bit. Glad you asked. I think I even a little bit. I know you and I are friends on Facebook. I think if you go back through some of my pictures, you will find me wearing my Iron Maiden mask. I actually have 3 of them. They're all the same. So I went for the fancy mask. I had to wait like 3 months for those this past year. Twinkle, don't know how you made that long drive. I love to drive, Twinkle. Love it. Just putting the miles behind us. That's all we're doing. 1 mile at a time. That's all you can do. Did not stay the night anywhere, Louise. No, never. straight through. I get in the car and drive, and only stop for gas and go to the bathroom. Hello, Elizabeth. What's my favorite seafood? I'll get to that, Tammy. Thank you for asking. Elizabeth, what does your playlist look like on your long drives? Well, with Dad, there really isn't much of a playlist. Certainly different than if I were by myself, but those are some good questions that I think I'm going to ask or answer here. So, favorite seafood, and somebody, Jill also asked me about music, and I'll get to that. Louise, love Iron Maiden. Hallowed be thy name. Great song it is. Louise knows her Iron Maiden. That's a positive. Hello, Diana. Hi, snowing in Leechburg, 7-inch snow. Glad I'm not there. Everybody should know, if you're seeing Diana here, Diana with 2 N's. Diana and I have known each other. I don't know, Diana. How long's it been? I don't know. I don't want to give away your age, but we've known each other since about 1984. We did not go to high school together, but her grandparents lived across the street from my grandparents, way back in Leechburg, Pennsylvania, on Smale Road. And Diana, I appreciate you tuning in tonight. But yes, Diana and I have known each other for a very, 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 very long time. But and I remember hanging out there, like I said, had to have been mid-80s, Diana, right? That's how I remember it. Chanda, oh my God, my parents had an Iron Maiden tapestry when I was a kid, and it scared the heck out of me with a scary goblin on the front. Well, that's not a goblin, Chanda. That is their mascot, and their mascot's name is Eddie. That's true. That's true, Chanda. True story. Their mascot's name is Chanda. You don't have to apologize, Ruth. We're just getting started. So I'm going to answer a couple of those questions. However, right now, before we get into anything and to definitely change the mood, I think most of you know by now that my assistant Heather, often Heather, of course, takes part in these live shows. She's been one of my assistants since the summer of 2018. She is one of the moderators in the discussion group, which at times it can be a tough job. And sorry to say that she lost her husband, John, to a liver disease this past Sunday evening. And, I don't know all the details. And even if I did, I don't think that I would be open to expressing them, but I really don't know them. However, I can say that I think myself and all the other assistants knew that her husband, John, was very sick. He's not a very old guy. I think he was 43 years old, so certainly younger than I am. And so I just wanted to let all of you know, if you didn't know, and to give your support to Heather. Heather is one of... I have 6 assistants that all do different things. But Heather is one of the few that I've actually met in person. I've also met Eric Grabowski when I've been back to the Pittsburgh area, because he is from the area that I'm from. But I actually met Heather when I went to Amarillo in 2019, arranged by my listener and good friend Charmin, get together regarding Tom Brown's disappearance. Of course, the media was there. And Heather, when she found out that I was there, she went over there, made a special trip over there with her daughter to meet me, and something she was not planning to do. Of course, I showed up there as a secret, as a surprise. And when she found out that I was there, she hopped in her truck or whatever it was with her daughter and drove over there. And it's like an hour drive. And I think she did 90 miles an hour or something to get there. And so I got to meet her, got to meet her daughter. And that meant a lot to me, that she went out of her way on that evening to come over to meet me in person. That really was really a kind thing of her to do. Something I did not expect. And as you would probably expect, all of us here at Unfound are very heartbroken for her. And I know, you should know, I know Heather's mother as well, having talked to her a few times, including recently. And so Heather and her daughter is going through a very tough time right now. And I hope that you will give them all the support that you can, whatever belief system or whatever else that you happen to believe in. I'm not here to push anything on anybody regarding that, but whatever you believe in, and supporting people religiously, spiritually, whatever else, if you could support Heather in your own special way, thinking about her, praying for her and her family, sending her a message or whatever else. I know that myself and the rest of the assistants would certainly appreciate that. Just too young. Just too young. I don't know. I think all of us, we know what our ages are, and maybe we all feel younger than we do. And I don't think any of us, when we know that so many people live to their 70s, 80s, 90s, into their hundreds, we don't think that really any one of us can pass long before the average age says we should. And you just never know what can happen. And I know that for me, that doing this program, fulfills me in my life. And, if something were to happen to me, that I would think that I did the best I could. But we know none of us ever think that it's going to happen. And then it does. And then it happens, I didn't know John. I never met him. But I really think very highly of Heather. And so I can't help but think that John was a very special person as well. And you just never expect it. Somebody in their 40s to not be with us anymore. And, we were hoping for a different outcome, because this had been something that he was going through for a while, and just didn't end up that way. I know that, my mother died a little over 2 years ago, and it was horrible. If you were listening to the Unfound at the time, I took off a couple weeks. There were no episodes on Fridays for a couple weeks, and I was there when we decided to stop treatment. And I was there, for those last 5 or 6 hours when, we knew she wasn't going to make it, and I was there when she died, and I heard the machine, make that sound that we all know when somebody passes away. But that's the way of life. We as children fully expect that our parents are going to pass away before we do. That is life. And so when something happens, when a child dies and the parents are still alive, it just doesn't seem like the correct order of things. And I think that's also what hurts so much when young people pass before we ever think they should. And so we're here for you, Heather. There's just no words. But she had called me on Sunday evening, and I'm not going to get into the details, but she called me, and I felt so humbled that in her time of need on Sunday, when this was happening, that she would call me to let me know what was going on. Like I said, she doesn't work for me. Heather is a volunteer, like all of my assistants are, but I was one of the people that she picked to call. And she also wanted me to pass on information to the rest of the assistants, but she called really meant something to me. And to think that I'm in a special place in her life that she would do that, was certainly unexpected, and I thank her for that. So Heather, we're all here for you, and we'll be here for you and your daughters and the rest of your family as well. So you have my deepest sympathies. Yeah. So, but I had to talk about that. Yeah, everybody here. Thank you, everyone, for the well wishes for Heather. I appreciate it. We're just going to leave it at that. Louise says, sorry for your loss. And Delane says, my heart goes out to her. Yes. Yeah. Carrie says, once again, Carrie is also one of my assistants. Yes, we are heartbroken with you, Heather. We love you, and we are here for you. Yeah. So that happened. Let's move on. Let's just get, maybe I will answer some of these questions now. Who was it that asked me about, who was it? Tammy asked me, what's my favorite seafood? I had scallops tonight, Tammy, and they were very good. Thing is, you have to get enough of them. Of course, scallops are not that big, but really, really love scallops. Love crab cakes as well. Lobster, yeah. I love shrimp too, but I like to eat the cold shrimp. Like they'll bring you like a pound of shrimp and then you peel them yourself and eat them. That's the way I like shrimp. I will eat it fried or something, but the best way is cold. It's like boiled or whatever, and then it's served cold. And I love peeling it off, and the cocktail sauce. That is really good too. But even though, I live here right on the Gulf, I would not say that I eat a lot of seafood. So it's a once in a while thing, and usually when people are here, like my dad being here. But that's a good question. Elizabeth, I'm going to answer these just because I want to make sure I don't forget them. Elizabeth asked me, what does your playlist look like on your long drives? Well, if I'm by myself, Elizabeth, it's usually just the music that I usually listen to, which is a combination of hard rock and heavy metal from like the 70s and 80s. And, I have some playlists on Spotify that are like, what we might call mixtapes going back to the 1980s. And then maybe I might find, you just never know what I might find. I know that at one time I listened to a book on tape. Lead singer Bruce Dickinson has a book out called What Does This Button Do? And I've actually listened to that book a couple times. Now, it's like 10 hours long. The audiobook's like 10 hours long. So you have to be going somewhere. But I think I listened to that when I went to Amarillo in 2019. What I also did when I was driving to Amarillo, I listened to all of Iron Maiden's albums. All of them. And found some little nuggets, music, songs that maybe have been forgotten, don't get a lot of radio play, etc., that I had forgotten about. And then they went on my favorite hits mixtape that I have on Spotify for Iron Maiden. So you never know what you're going to do. And then when I drove to Orlando and to Barrie the last couple months, I started going through all of Van Halen's albums, starting with, of course, David Lee Roth, and maybe picking out some nuggets there. Because I know a lot of Van Halen tunes, but I couldn't remember the last time I actually listened to an entire album the whole way through. So those are some of the things that I do when I'm on a trip in the car. And of course, Spotify certainly helps that along because it has so much music and albums on there. I am a subscriber, a paying subscriber to Spotify. Jasmine says prayers to Heather and her family. Sheree says 2020 sucks. True. Hello, Jill. Haven't answered your question yet. Lisa King Crab. There's Lisa. I'm going to talk about Lisa, and I'm going to talk about her in a second. Louis says she love any seafood, shrimp cocktail, New Orleans crawfish. Carrie says, gasp, you didn't listen to Unfound Podcast on long drives, you heathen, you. Well, you should know, Carrie, that when I drove to Ocala back in, when was it? October? In preparation for my interview with Dr. Telesco, I re-listened to the interview I did with Jody Walsh for Robin Abrams. I did that on that trip. So I do, but mainly if I'm, for example, once again, with Dr. Grace Telesco, if I need to kind of brush up on an interview that I did from some time ago, just to remember what exactly the facts and the conversation and everything. So I have done that. I do that too, Carrie. Louise says we should get married, Ed. That's funny, Louise. Hello. Alice says hello from PA. Hello. It's cold and snowy, windy. I've heard. I'm glad I'm not there. Ruth says my mom talked about growing up in Pennsylvania. Yeah. Calamari. Had some calamari tonight too. Okay. Let's move on to the, and being that I see Lisa in here, you also should know that yesterday my dad and I went down to the place that I always meet. You should know that if you remember, going back to the Chip Campbell interview episode that I did back in 2017, his sister Lisa was the guest. Well, since then, I've gotten together with Lisa and her husband a couple times, more than a couple, maybe 6 or 7 times, because they live here in the area. And since COVID started, we had not had an opportunity to do that. So like 10 months at least. So my dad and I actually met with Lisa and her husband and Chip's other sister, one of his other sisters, Donna. And so the 5 of us all got together where I usually meet them at a place called Foxy's down in Treasure Island, which is directly south of here. And we had a great time. And I think that Lisa, Donna, and Lutchman were eager to meet my dad, and he was eager to meet them. So we had a really good time getting together. We must have been there like an hour and a half. So that's something else that my dad and I have done since he's been here. There she is. Lisa said it was fun. We enjoyed meeting your father. Yeah, thank you, Lisa. And Lisa, how was the weather today? Ed, well, it was raining and everything, Lisa, but I have to tell you, I didn't experience too much of it because I was inside doing work. But my dad and I did drive down to the Conch we were just talking about yesterday for dinner, and it was sprinkling, but that's about it, which is very dark, just sprinkling. The road's very wet. So, but the weather, yeah, was not good. I heard there might have even been a tornado or something. So, yes, he did get to meet you, Lisa. Okay. Let's move on to the items, the meat of the program. The Chelsea Cobo poll, of course, last Friday, we covered the disappearance of Chelsea Cobo, who disappeared in May of 2016 from Brooklyn, New York City, New York. And I have to admit, I was a little surprised. I always do these polls for the discussion group. And I asked, what do you think happened to Chelsea Cobo? Was she sex trafficked out of the area of New York City? Was she just outright murdered? Did she overdose or something else? And I was very surprised to read the most popular choice was something else happened. Now, I'm not sure what people have in their minds about what something else might be, but I have to admit I was surprised that the sex trafficking choice was not number 1. Maybe something else could be number 2, but I was thinking that sex trafficking would have been number 1. Not to say that I particularly personally believe that's what happened, but I think that in just general, you looking at this disappearance, it does have the feel of sex trafficking, especially if we are to believe that Chelsea was raped a few weekends before that and she had been drugged up, etc. and then she's meeting, some men in the middle of the night. Because I think theoretically, the public thinks, well, this is kind of how that happens when, adult women, get caught up in something like that, is maybe they do get involved in drugs and they're hanging out with shady people, and all of a sudden they're being whisked away at 3:00 in the morning. Well, that's kind of how it seems what happened to Chelsea Cobo, but that was not the choice that all of you made. Instead, you picked a majority of you, or more. The choice that got, wasn't even, I don't know if it was a majority, but the choice that was the most popular was something else happened to her. Now, you should know, in the think tank, being that we can talk things out a little bit more than in the discussion group, it's a much smaller group and get more into the details. And if you'd like to be in the think tank, and I know Cherie's going to post it, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. If you'd like to be a Patreon member, a Patreon supporter, and if you would like to become a member of the think tank, but you have to contribute at a premium level, $12 a month or above. So we talked it out on Sunday night, as we usually do it, at 7 p.m. Eastern. And it was almost unanimous that it's the belief that Chelsea that morning at some point overdosed. Now, was it a hot shot? Was it a mistake? Was it somewhere in between? Not sure. But the overwhelming beliefs amongst the think tank members is that she overdosed, and I happen to believe that is my choice as well. Sometimes I differ from the members in the think tank, but this was one time when I did agree with them. And in fact, I wrote as much in the Patreon blog, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. And you only have to contribute at $2 a month to read what I have to say about the disappearance that has been covered for that week. And of course, I will be writing another one this week for this upcoming episode on Friday. In fact, just to tell all of you, my opinion was that what happened to her on the night/morning that she disappeared, I think was just an extension of what had happened a couple weeks before that, where before she seemingly got high by whatever means, or she was knocked out drug or whatever, and then she might have been raped. And I think whatever happened to her on the morning that she disappeared was similar to that. It just went further. Even though I did draw some parallels between her disappearance and Jessie Foster, who was certainly sex trafficked, I think there are a lot of differences there as well to believe that they are not quite as similar as they may seem. So once again, if you'd like to be a part of the think tank, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast, contributing at the $12 a month level or above. And if you'd just like to read the blogs that I write every week, about 3,000 plus words every week, it's $2 a month. Or if you want to go to $5 a month, we'll throw in some extra things for you. Let's see. Louise says, would love to do a discussion on UK missing person, Susie. I'm very familiar with that disappearance, Louise. In fact, I can tell you early on in Unfound's existence, I tried to contact somebody in her family regarding it, but nobody ever got back to me. In fact, just to prove that I know this disappearance, and I could do this off the top of my head, and I know it's been a while she disappeared, but she was in real estate, and she went to some house. She was going to be showing some house, and then she disappeared. Correct? Pretty sure. So, I am very familiar with that disappearance. I know that there's like a trust fund or something set up in her name. And early on in Unfound's existence, 4 years ago, made an attempt. It just never happened. Nobody ever got back to me. But that doesn't mean I'm ruling it out. I would still love it to give it as much attention as it deserves. Eileen says, I get to do the next one. Eileen, so excited. Do you mean the think tank? Well, I hope you do mean Eileen, because I'm hoping to see you there. I can't wait. Ruth says she's read about Susie Lampew. Little bit says, yeah, I think it is. It was a hot shot for Chelsea Cobo. Delane says, I really hate I've missed the last few think tanks, especially Chelsea's. Well, Delane, I know you've had some things going on. I'm just glad that they get recorded and you can still watch them afterwards, knowing that being that you get the special link as a premium member that you can watch the rerun. Yeah, she was meeting a Mr. Kipper to view a house. That's right, Susie Lampew. Okay. All right. So that was Chelsea Cobo's disappearance. Of course, as you know, I will be talking to Rose Cobo, hopefully within the next week or so, to talk over the episode and see where we can go from here. I've not spoken to her since the episode came out, but that is not unusual. The next topic that I want to discuss is maybe you saw this post in the group that remains have been found near the location of where Robbie Hurt's truck was found. Of course, that's a disappearance that we just did. We just covered back in September. So very recently. Let me do something here. Okay. And we also have to remember that Robbie's disappearance is fairly new. Almost exactly 2 years ago. He disappeared on December 9th, 2018. But this is somewhat similar to Crystal Morrison's disappearance and how her remains were found, where there were construction workers, surveyors over in these woods and happened upon her remains. It kind of sounds like that's what happened in this situation. Now, the remains have not been identified yet, but they are at least, I guess, within a mile of where Robbie's truck was found near the Danville Expressway in Danville, Virginia. What one of the articles said is that the remains were spread out, which probably means that it was the remains were there in one piece and then animals took over. But I would also remind you is that even if these remains are identified as Robbie's, does not rule out foul play. It very well could be that somebody put his body there. It doesn't mean that Robbie put himself there. So I'm sure that that they will get to the bottom of this with these remains. I'm fairly confident that Robbie's family has their DNA, his mother has their DNA submitted to NAMUS, and that at some point they'll figure out whether these are Robbie or not. They very well be somebody, not him at all. Just don't know. But that is news that happened just right after I did the live show last week. So, but we know, even like Austin Pivo, Andrea Bowman, that this DNA test can sometimes take quite a while, maybe 6 months. So it may be June of 2021 before we really know if those bones are Robbie Hurt or not. But I thought that you want to know about that. And I'm sure some of you saw the news. I've not yet spoken to Robbie's mother about this, just been a little busy, but I probably should put it on my list of things to do, to call her to see what she thinks about all of this. Now, what's interesting about this is that many of you at the time, I was a little, I guess, suspicious about this. I didn't know if this buddy of Robbie's telling the truth, of whether Robbie, overdosed and then this friend hit him with the Narcan. I'm not sure whether I believe that story or not, but I have to also say, though, that I was surprised by so many people that really did believe that Robbie really did drive off and then he really did leave his truck where it was found. So it very well could be in the end that we may find out that those people were totally right. I guess we'll see. Or once again, it could be somebody not Robbie. Let's see here. Becky, how do searchers miss that? Well, I don't know how complete the searchers really were, Becky, at the time. I don't know. I'm not even sure how far these remains are from his truck. I know they're in the general area, and you may say, well, it's, even if it's a mile away, well, a mile in any direction is a lot of square miles. That's a lot of area to cover. So it is at least conceivable. I mean, you can look back at Eric Pratt's disappearance, and they eventually found his remains. And the searches that were done for him, my impression, were much more complete, much more thorough, many more people involved than anything that was ever done for Robbie Hurt. And those people still missed Eric's remains because when his remains were found, it was in the area that they searched the first time around. I don't know. I'm not there, so I can't make too harsh of a judgment, but we have to remember that the human body is not that big. And just somebody looking the wrong way at the wrong time could just totally go by something that might show that, hey, there's a person under those leaves, under those branches. That's all it takes. So it does happen. I would not say that it's unusual for remains to be found in an area that has been searched before. But I'm not saying that happened in this situation with Robbie. I really don't know. But I do know that was the situation with Eric's. But it wasn't the situation with Crystal's, because if you will remember, her remains were found on private land. And at the time, searchers were not allowed to go on that piece of land. Whereas with the surveyors, they have eminent domain. And, if they're going to be widening a road or something, they can go on that property due to local laws. And that's how Crystal was found. And had they not been able to go on that land, her disappearance still would be unsolved. And her remains would still not be found. So it's just the way it is. Ruth said, Chelsea just got out of the mental hospital shortly before she disappeared. Being bipolar and on drugs is sad, especially as she had a child. Yeah, Ruth, true. But I have to believe that these other people that were around her certainly played a huge part. I think if Chelsea never meets any of these people, I think that she doesn't go missing. They certainly played a huge part in Chelsea going missing, even if not any one of them, murdered her, harmed her, killed her. They certainly played a huge part, I think, in her disappearance. Hello, Satin B. Good to see you. Ruth says, could be John Canan. Wish the police would have done better. Yeah, Louise. Would cadaver dogs find a body in water? There are dogs trained for that, but I'm not a big believer in dogs, Louise. Delane says, I just can't fathom denying anyone from searching my land if I had any for a missing person. It happens all the time, Delane. Yeah. All right. Let me go to another question. I know that Jill is in here, so being that I've already talked about music once, I'm going to do it again. Jill asked me, even though she knows that I'm into heavy metal, you should know, I don't go as far as like Slayer or Pantera or, that type of music. My upper limit is like Judas Priest, Megadeth, Iron Maiden, probably as far as I go. But when it comes to pop music, Jill wants to know some of my favorite pop songs. I'll have you know, Jill, that I'm a huge Prince fan. In fact, I would say that Purple Rain, when it came out, the age I was at the time, MTV and everything, had a huge impression on me. Made a huge impression, I think, that continues to this day. I do believe that Prince was the Mozart of his era. From the late 20th century into the 21st century. There was no instrument he couldn't play. He could sing anything. He could do any type of music. And I mean, he was prolific. The amount of songs and material that he put out from the late 70s until his death, just so impressive. In my opinion, he dwarfed everybody else, including Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson, great singer, great performer, but he was not the musician that Prince was, and he was not prolific like Prince was, even though it very well may be that Michael Jackson in the end sold more albums. But when it came to turning out music and remaining, right there at the top for so many years, where it seems like Michael Jackson, went away. Huge fan of Prince. I'm a big fan of Duran Duran. Once again, that's coming from my era, that MTV era of early 80s to late 80s into the 90s. Duran Duran left a huge impression on me. Certainly a pop group, but fantastic musicians, fantastic music, singing. A unique sound, even though they were using synthesizers and everything, still a very, very unique sound. And as far as women go, I guess, Madonna, I don't know. As far as, I don't know, when it comes to women, singers, and I have to admit that I go in a little bit of a different direction. I like Chaka Khan. I like Sade. So it seems like when it comes to men making music, it's a certain type. And when women are making the music, singing, playing the instruments and everything, it's a different type of music. Why that is, I don't know. I'm a huge fan of disco music. Really, the only type of music that I don't listen to is country. Can't take it. Huge fan of disco music. In fact, I will tell you that my favorite disco song, in fact, I just posted this recently, was my favorite disco tune is by the Michael Zager Band called Let's All Chant. I mean, it's very, very repetitive and everything else, but it is so disco. And what's funny is that Michael Zager, he was like a one-hit wonder. He ended up being a music professor at a university. It wasn't Nova Southeastern, but maybe it was. Down in the Miami area, he was a professor of music here in Florida after having a #1 disco hit, which I think is awesome. But so that gives you a little bit of a taste of the music that I like outside of. I love the Police. Not the biggest Sting fan, but the Police, when they were all together, I think were fantastic. So I think that answers that. Elizabeth says, yes, Prince and Duran Duran. Heart, Stevie Nicks. They're fine. Chanda, Stevie Nicks, obviously unique. Made a great impression on many of the women singers who came after her. I think that you can see, see Stevie Nicks in many, many pop stars of the 80s, 90s, even till Lady Gaga, for example. I mean, you can certainly see a lot of Stevie Nicks in her, even though she does a totally different type of music. Fleetwood Mac, though, just a little too light for me. Obviously, Lindsey Buckingham, etc., tremendous musicians. I kind of feel like them, like I feel like about Bruce Springsteen. I'm not the biggest Bruce Springsteen fan either. Once again, the music doesn't have enough crunch to me for some reason. It's like rock and roll, but if you're going to do rock and roll, then you got to have a little more distortion. If you're not going to do that, then I would prefer you just be like Duran and Prince. It's that area right between that just feels a little milquetoast to me, like Bruce Springsteen, Tom Petty, Steve Miller Band, Bob Seger. that music, it's rock and roll. It's just not enough rock. It's rolling. There's just not enough rock to it to me. That's just me. So there you go. Heart's okay, but I don't know. Say a Prairie, Adamant, Sharia, Depeche Mode. I like Depeche Mode too. Yeah, Fleetwood Mac, best group. Never saw them live. Janis Joplin, Joyce. Okay. Okay, so everybody's now naming all the Eagles. Not a huge Eagles fan. Once again, not enough crunch, not enough distortion in that guitar for me. All right, let's move on. Thank you for the great question, Jill, but that gives you an idea of where my tastes go in another direction when I'm not listening to what I usually listen to. I want to just talk about this very quickly. I already have an announcement in the group, but I just want to talk about posting in the group. It does seem like we're getting a little more of people posting things that technically are not supposed to be put in the group, and specifically just randomly posting about some unsolved murder or unsolved disappearance that have happened, well into the past. I want to make sure when it comes to the discussion group that things that are posted in it are somewhat current within at least the last few months. Because if we were to open it up to anything about any disappearance, any unsolved murder, anytime, then it's just going to be, it's boom, 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 boom. And, there won't be any room for discussion at all because every minute somebody will be posting something about some item, some disappearance, some murder, some unsolved crime that happened well in the past. And I feel for all those people. I do. It's horrible. But we have to somehow keep a control on what's in the discussion group because we don't want it to become like a conveyor belt where you can actually see the feed moving because people are posting anything they want. So we try to limit those posts to current news within the last couple months or breaking news, new updates on crimes, disappearances that have happened in the past. Anything outside of that regarding disappearances or anything else are going to get deleted. And then of course, this goes to all the other stuff, asking for signatures, any petitions, GoFundMes, stuff like that. All of that stuff is not permitted as well either. So it just seems that I know myself, and I don't know about, I know Heather, of course, has had her thing going on with her, her husband and in his sickness and death. But Carrie is also in there, and I don't know how much she's seen, but I know I've seen it. And so I've had to delete some posts that don't quite go within the rules. So all I ask is that make sure you really think about long and hard about what you're going to post before you post it. Because if it's not within the criteria and the rules are in the announcements section, if it's not, it's going to get deleted. And it'll probably be done without an explanation. Let's see here. Pantera were screamers. Yeah, they are. Groove is in the heart. I know that song, Julie. A little bit. I'm so sorry about the country music. Carrie's saying, yes, please, I guess, about what I just talked about. Yeah, Ruthie did have some. Louise says, is that me, Ed? I'm not picking on anybody in particular, Louise. I'm just telling you what I've noticed recently. I don't know if it's been you or not. I really don't even look at the names. I see the article that's posted. If it doesn't go within the criteria, it gets deleted. And sometimes I don't even look at the names. Carrie says, I spy a lot just because I'm not seen. Doesn't mean I'm not there. Carrie, like Heather, is one of the administrators in the group. Okay. So just once again, think long and hard before you post something and really ask yourself, is this something that should be posted in the group? Is it current? Is it current news? Does it fall within the criteria? And if it doesn't, and you're not sure, go to the announcements section, scroll down to the post I did about what's permitted, what's not permitted, and read through it, please. All right, let's move on to this. Natasha recently posted the 6th Unfound on the Ground that we did with Patreon members like a few weeks ago. The standard is that, of course, the Unfound on the Grounds are for premium think tank or premium Patreon members only. Of course, all those people are also in the think tank. And led by my assistant, Dr. Eric Grabowski. But what happens is then a few weeks after the Unfound on the Ground is done, it is then made public on the YouTube channel. So I hope you will check that out. That is a new video that Natasha, my assistant, just posted. And it had to do with sex trafficking and disappearances. And Eric and Natasha really get into some good theory regarding culture and society in there. So I hope you will check that out once again on the Unfound Podcast Channel. So much material on there. I do not know of another true crime channel on YouTube that turns out so many different types of videos and different types of information than we do on the Unfound Podcast Channel. Very, very unique. On top of the fact, once again, this live show, I'm one of the only podcast hosts that does this on a weekly basis at the same time every week, where I love to get together with all of you and answer your questions. And as you know, I bring a host of material to talk about that I think you will find interesting. Louise, does it have to be a missing case in the United States? It doesn't. No, it doesn't, Louise, but it has to be somewhat current within the last few months. What I would say is if you have a missing persons case that happened in the UK in 2012, then probably that is not something that we would want posted. However, if there is new information on a disappearance that happened in 2012, then yes, please do post it. I felt so bad for Tom Thomas. We'll have to listen again routinely. The election, COVID, I'm worried about increased sex trafficking. Don't know what to think. I don't know if elections and COVID have anything to do with sex trafficking. Julie, I don't know if there's any correlation between any of that. I think we have a better idea regarding sex trafficking than we did 10 years ago, and certainly 20 or 30 years ago. So if the education increases, then that should lead to less people, less children getting sex trafficked. I'm hoping. In here, no. In the group, it would be. If you have contact info on a cold case, contact Emily and she can line it up. That's right. If there is some missing persons case, Louise, that you would like covered that is somewhat older, a couple years old, going back to 2017, 2016, anything older than that, then the best thing you can do is contact my assistant, Emily Dodson, who is in the group, and you can work with her on getting in contact with somebody in the missing persons family, because that's what Emily does exclusively for the program. And she's been doing that for 3.5 years. She's spectacular at it. All right. You'll remember I did an Unfound Now while I was over in DeBerry, Florida, regarding Alan White. He's still missing. I just was checking today to see if there is any new news, any new revelations, suspects, anything like that. No information whatsoever. So just don't know what to think about that. I of course, gave you my kind of opinion. Didn't want to theorize too much on that Unfound Now, but reading everything that I did, it could lead me to believe that he maybe had some plans to meet somebody else that morning before he went home. I think I could believe that, but I'm open to other ideas as well. Of course, as facts change, theories change. But on the facts that I know about it right now, I'm just no different than any of you with what's out in the public. I have to admit, there's a large part of me that leans toward an idea that he was going to meet somebody after the gym and maybe something happened. But no news since I did that Unfound Now. How long that was? It's going to be 3 weeks, I guess, this weekend. Okay. So let me answer another question. Elena, spelled Elena. I don't know if she's in here or not. She asked me, what do I like most about Christmas? Well, I think like everybody else, I think I love presents. Other than that, just very festive. Yeah, of course, here in Florida, there's no snow. Really doesn't get that cold. There's no sled riding. There's no snowman making. There's no cars going on black ice and sliding and going up on curbs and all that. But we do have Christmas lights. In fact, all the telephone poles or power electric poles out here on Gulf Boulevard, they've put up Christmas decorations, and it looks beautiful at night. Really looks nice. And a lot of houses in this particular area where I live, they do put Christmas lights up. It's beautiful. That's really cool too. I have to admit, one of the decorations that I like the most that people do to their homes, and I can remember this going way back to when I was just a kid, and I don't know why this is. I always love seeing those houses that put those little single electric candles in their windows, right in the middle on each, inside, of course, on the ground floor, upper floors, putting those little electric one bulb, maybe the candle's red or, white or something like that. I always love, it was very simple, very understated, not somebody like Clark Griswold putting lights all over the house, but just a really tasteful, like I said, understated display during the Christmas season, putting those electric candles in the windows, every window of a house. It's just something about that looks so neat. And that's probably one of my favorite decorations. Even though I don't know, I know people like it, but I think when people think Christmas decorations, they think stuff out in the yard and Santa and the reindeer and blow up Santas and people putting reindeers and Santa on the roof and everything else. Me, I love those electric candles in the windows. That's what always catches my attention. The house doesn't even have to have anything else. But the candles in the windows just do something for me. Louise says, I was reading about Echo Lloyd. I'm going to be talking about Echo Lloyd before we're done tonight, Louise. So hang on there. Hello, Nina. What's going on? Good to see you with the Christmas trees, the pine trees. I love it. Delane says she likes the candles in the windows too. I knew I liked you for some reason, Delane. Carrie says we got our pre-lit tree up. That is it. No ornaments, just the tree. Okay, well, that counts for something, Carrie. Yeah. Alice says, I love the boats decorating lights on the water in Florida. I think that's going to be happening. Yeah, the boat parade. I think that's going to be happening this weekend, Alice, somewhere down in Madeira Beach where I used to live. So, yeah, they do that here. And I think there's even some sort of competition or something. I've been here 9 years. I've never seen it yet. But I know it goes on and people really get into it big time. Me, I'd be worried about having all that electricity out in the water, but what do I know? Okay. Let's move on to this. I just noticed this in passing today on Twitter that had it not been for COVID, that the trial for Michael Turney, Alyssa Turney's father, was supposed to start today. But did not because of course, everything that's gone on here in 2020. So that, like many other trials that I'm hopefully sure, that we're talking about in 2021, that's another one that we'll be looking out for. Of course, we have Kamisha Hollis' trial, Austin Pivo, Alyssa Turney. We also have, and Jonathan Estes, his wife. I forgot her name right now. Sorry, I didn't write it down here. But his wife, regarding the theft of that Bobcat, that's another trial we are waiting on. I get the idea we'll be talking about a lot of Zoe Campos's trial for Carlos Rodriguez, supposed to also be happening in 2021. Going to be covering a lot of trials in 2021, being that everything's been pushed back. So, but Michael Turney's was supposed to start today. There you go. And I wasn't even looking for that. I was on Twitter doing something else. And I do follow, though, that, of course, her disappearance on Twitter and that account. And I think it's her sister, Alyssa's sister, that runs it, who was on the program back when we covered Alyssa's disappearance. And yeah, it was supposed to start today. Didn't realize that. Louise says, I like the icicles that hang outside. Those are cool too, Louise. I think that's actually a Hanukkah tradition. The candles, is it, Cherie? Okay. I guess that would make sense with the, yeah. I guess I didn't even think about it, that Cherie. Either way, I really don't care. I think it's beautiful. Decorated boats in South Africa. Interesting. Letitia Stock, Lori Dable. Yeah, there's some other cases. Trials that will be happening in 2021. I was just sticking to the stuff that we've covered, disappearances that we've covered, Cherie. But yeah, those two. A lot of things going to be happening in 2021. Yeah, okay. Yep, Sarah. Yeah, Sarah Turney, of course. Yep. Yeah, okay. Let's move on to, being that I said that I was going to be talking about Echo Lloyd, let's just get right into that right now. I'm not going to go real deep into this. I've just done a little bit of reading over the last couple days. I actually took time to at least watch the interview section that John Lorden and the other guy, Jason Hebert, they did a video together on YouTube in interviewing Echo's daughter. And I didn't watch the entire thing. I just watched that interview. I also listened to an interview that Echo's daughter did with the woman from Web Sleuths. And I also watched a little bit of an interview that her daughter did with another guy on YouTube, but it was very, very unwatchable because the music and the voice, the audio and video were not synced up, and there was this huge delay and everything. I watched it for a couple minutes. That's all I could stand. If you don't know, some of the facts regarding Echo is that she was allegedly having problems with a neighbor. She'd moved to this new house, and this guy came over and introduced himself. And seemingly over time, he kind of weaseled his way, allegedly, into Echo's life to the point that he was like squatting in her house. And allegedly, she was having problems with him, wanting him to leave. But on the other hand, according to, once again, things that I heard and read regarding Echo, is that there were several videos of her and this guy being together, and it didn't look like she was being forced to be there. Videos of them out and about. It's not like, just to be explicit, it's not like he had a gun to her head. They're out together. And it's not like he's holding on to her or anything like. There's no alleged signs of violence in any of these videos that they could turn up regarding Echo and this guy together. Well, on Mother's Day, her daughter tried to get in contact with her, couldn't reach her, brought her over a present for Mother's Day. The house was locked, couldn't reach her. Daughter came back the next day, still wasn't there, got a little suspicious, went in, broke a window, went inside. And Echo's wallet, money, and her ID were at the home. But her medication, her car keys, and her phone were missing. As far as the topic of a gun that she owned, still very unclear in that. Some recent articles say that she owned a gun and it's missing. But I also know that at least in one interview, the daughter said that the gun was found in Echo's yard. So I don't know what to think on that. But in thinking about this, once again, I've never talked to Echo's daughter. This disappearance, of course, would not be eligible for Unfound coverage until it became a year old. And I, of course, hope that it is solved before then. And I hope that Echo is found alive and well. But I know that the daughter is pushing, very hard on this idea that that this neighbor had something to do with her mother's disappearance, and that could certainly be true. The tough part for me, though, in listening to John interview her, he's done a ton of interviews. Maybe not as many interviews as I've done, but he's done his share. And I actually contacted John today, and he got back to me, and I just made some comments. And I think he did the best. I even told him, he'll tell you. I said, I think you did the best with what you were given, because it seems to me that the daughter's interviews have been very what I would call uneven. And he got back to me, and we exchanged a couple emails. But she's pushing this idea very hard that the neighbor, had infused himself into Echo's life. And he was a neighbor who lived on the other side of these woods. And you can hear the daughter even say, yeah, I was there the day he kind of just walked up out of the woods and introduced himself. And what's hard for me to understand, though, is that if this guy was giving Echo so many problems and was essentially squatting in her place, I haven't heard anything from the daughter about how her mother tried to call the cops. I mean, this is what police do. One of the things they do is, trespassing. People are trespassing on property. They'll show up, see what's going on. Squatting, people taking over houses, usually houses that are totally unoccupied, and showing up. And, somebody has, like, for example, somebody has a winter home or a summer home, and they board it up, they lock it up, they go live in their other house. And then while they're gone, somebody just comes along, breaks in, and starts living in the house. Turns on the electricity, turns on the cable, and just pretends they're living there. And then when the family shows up, there's somebody in their house, and, it can get violent, and these things happen. I'm still a little confused, and I don't know why it doesn't seem to me anybody's asked her this question yet, the daughter. Not saying the daughter would know, but I think you have to ask this question. If Echo was having problems with this guy, why didn't she just call the police? If this was truly a situation, and she's afraid of this guy, and the daughter has said, well, I think on the day that she disappeared, she was going to finally confront him. Well, if she's afraid of him, why not have the police there? It's surely more dangerous for Echo to show up and try to kick this guy out on her own than just call the police. Don't have to call 911. All she has to do is drive down to the police station and say, I got this situation. I don't want to make a big deal of it, but I'm a little afraid. This guy, I don't know what to do. Can you help me out with this? Instead of calling 911 and the cops show up, sirens and lights. Just not sure about this. I think what also makes it a little difficult for me to assess the entire situation is that the daughter does do a lot of speculating in the interviews that she's done. And I have a hard time determining, is she saying this is the truth, or is this just a theory of hers? It's been very difficult for me to determine that. And that's, once again, at least when I do interviews, why we don't do any theorizing. Really, really, really try to stay away from that. I don't want anybody going away from an interview thinking, oh, she was theorizing on that one. No, that was a fact. And because I understand that people can get confused. So it's just, I don't know. It also appears to me that in looking back at going back to articles going way back to when Mother's Day happened in 2020, that the story about this guy who just came over and started squatting, infusing himself into Echo's life more and more and more, it seems to me this is just recent news. I don't see anything going back to May or June or July in connection to Echo's disappearance. It's only been within the last month, maybe 45 days. And so that leaves a big question mark in my mind. Certainly, I mean, we know from our discussions about disappearances and interviews that men forcing their way into women's lives is usually a topic from day one in a disappearance. From day one. And it doesn't seem like that's the way it's been regarding the coverage of Echo's disappearance. I don't know why. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just wondering why it seems like the only angle, I guess, at this point, if we're thinking it's a foul play, and it took all this time for it to get out. So let's see what happens. Carrie says gun was initially missing, but later found in the yard. That's what some articles say, Carrie, but not all of them. Yeah, that was really strange. And her daughter even talked to him about boundaries. That's right. No. Chanda, I'm in Southwest Michigan, not too far from Bowman area. Was happy Andra's case. Okay. Thank you for that, Chanda. Louise, he borrowed her car. He had a key to her home. He came around all the time. He would not leave. She was last seen at the Dollar Mart Coffee. Missouri, it is pain in the butt to get rid of squatters, as it is in most states, certainly, Carrie. I don't think he was as unwanted as portrayed. Not saying Kelsey's wrong, just saying Echo was more involved than her daughter might have known. It was neighbor's wife, girlfriend as well. The daughter, Kelsey, said he was weird when she met him. Did he live with someone? She didn't want to rock the boat or something. She's theorizing because it's so early and no one wanted to cover the disappearance, unlike Suzanne Morphew, who disappeared the same day. Yeah, you have to remember, these both happened on Mother's Day of 2020. And Suzanne Morphew is now known all over the place, and it just is now seeming that more people are finding out about Echo's disappearance. Carrie says, I live not even an hour away, and I didn't even hear about her disappearance for months. Tammy, would you ever interview suspects of missing people? I've done that, Tammy. I've done that. Of course, Steve Pankey is the one that comes to mind, but I've interviewed a couple others that haven't been played on the program, but I have done that. Yeah. Ruth, terrible the media pick and choose. Yeah. Louise, he did jobs for Echo, like maintenance work. Echo had anxiety, I believe, and needed her meds. The ex-husband reported her missing. I think Charlotte. I've never even heard of Echo's case. Echo Lloyd, you can look it up. Charlotte from Missouri, happened earlier this year. Shireen, of course, as you would suspect, being that Shireen is one of my assistants. We've talked about this off air, and although we may differ on a couple of the particulars, one thing that she wrote here, I do agree with. I'm inclined to believe that Echo and this guy were probably a little closer than the daughter knew or wants to let on. The daughter said that her mother's OCD and she really likes everything neat, but she goes into the house, there's mold, there's stuff all over the place. Well, I think you have to pick one there. If her mother's OCD, then why is the place like that? And why would she let this guy who isn't supposed to be there in the first place do that? And if she was afraid of him, once again, why didn't she call the police? I got to tell you, I happen to believe that there was more to this relationship. It doesn't sound forced to me. And, as somebody stated here, yes, the daughter, Kelsey, in an interview says that she did talk to this guy about boundaries and everything else. Maybe that's not what her mother wanted. And it seems weird to me that she and her mother, as she admits in an interview, talked about this guy for 2 to 3 hours about all these things you were doing, but which seems like a long time to talk about it. Why not just take 5 minutes instead of talking about it 2 to 3 hours? Why not just call the police in 5 minutes and maybe take care of the whole situation? See, this is once again, as a reporter, I would have to ask somebody, if we were to do an official interview, why didn't she call the police? Well, maybe she was afraid. Well, she's more fearful of calling the police than she is of going to talk to this guy and asking him to leave, because that's allegedly what she was going to do. I don't know. Just don't think we have a very clear picture regarding this, despite, and I give the daughter all the credit in the world for doing these interviews, but having watched one interview, having listened to 95% of another interview, and watch/listen to another one, about 20% of another one, as an interviewer myself, who's done this over 200 times, there just seem to be things here that don't quite make sense. I'm not saying Kelsey is lying. I'm not saying that. It's just, as I stated earlier when I first started this, the interviews are very uneven. Very, very uneven. So, Steve Panky, yes. Carrie says that was one thing that was screaming something is wrong. House wasn't usually like that, but when Kelsey went to check on mom after couldn't get a hold of her for a month. Louise, the neighbor, was controlling the daughter. The window to the home was broke. Well, Kelsey broke it getting in. Cherie says she went to Dollar General to get a phone on the day she disappeared. Echo already had a phone. Yeah. Ruth says if the neighbor was bad, why would Echo hang around him all the time? All the theories. Kelsey's telling the truth that she knows it. Certainly true, Cherie. I'm not saying Kelsey is lying. But as I often find out with Unfound's own guests, is they often think when they say something that the audience hears what they're saying. Instead, the audience hears something totally different. That happens all the time. That what the disappearance and the way the facts are presented paints a certain picture in the guest's head. But those same facts, when they are aired to you, the public paint a entirely different picture in your head. And that's what's going on. It seems to me with Echo Lloyd's disappearance. The daughter is, with the facts that she knows, is painting a picture that her mother didn't want this guy, wanted him out of her life. He was squatting in there. He was doing this. He was forcing her to do that. But the more she says it, I think the more the public thinks, I think that Echo and this guy were in a relationship. And that happens. That's not unusual. I'm not blaming Kelsey for that. It's very, very common. And it's one of the reasons that with the think tank that we conduct at Unfound, once again, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast, this gives myself an opportunity to talk to some of you listeners, and then I can take that information back to the guest. And sometimes it is, well, I know what you think, guest, and I'm not saying you're wrong. What I'm saying is the way you are portraying the facts of the disappearance, the listeners are hearing something totally different. And here's what I think. Here's why I think that is. And I try to decode all of it. This happens very often. And I think that we all know this in our own social lives, on social media, and it has nothing to do with disappearances. When we say something to somebody, we have one thing in mind, but what they hear is something totally different. Happens all the time. Miscommunications. One of the biggest reasons we get in arguments in our lives is because of miscommunication. We think that we said something, that person heard something different. Happens in disappearances too. I think that's what's going on here. So that still could mean this neighbor caused her disappearance, but it certainly changes. It certainly opens up the possibilities, because if he was infusing himself, forcing himself, then it's perfectly reasonable to believe that it was just an outright murder of Echo and he covered it up. Whereas if they were in a relationship, and we know that Echo did have some issues where she needed her medication. It does sound to me like she had problems in public. It very well could be that she just walked off. And this guy, maybe the stress of being with this guy caused her to just walk off. I would also say that if it was so obvious that this guy harmed Echo, especially considering all these things that would be available to police going into the house, etc. This guy's, I guess he's in jail for something else now. it would seem to me that they would have been able to pin something on him at this point, but they haven't. And I think that this sounds to me, this disappearance is very much different than, say, Angela Green's or Marion Hurley's, which I think are much more obvious. Carrie says he was just a consistent guest at the house trying to take over control. Could be. Yes, he lived with someone else. Sure, yes. Charlotte, I wonder why she didn't call the police. I've said that myself, Charlotte, and I don't know if anybody's actually asked her daughter that particular question. I've not heard it yet. Not blaming John Lorden and the other guy who interviewed her, but they didn't ask that question either. Not blaming them. But that question wasn't asked. Louise, Carrie, no, it was while Echo was there. Kelsey said she was fed up of him being at the house. She went around there with her son, Carrie, I think neighbor, but really wondering which neighbor. Cherie, she vented to Kelsey, and that's what Kelsey knows. Carrie, and her meds are something a drug user would want. Yeah. Do you think she ever made it to the desert? Not sure about that, Tammy. So that's just my assessment of Echo Lloyd. I'm not as locked into this guy having harmed her as much as other people seem to be. And I think one of the reasons is because it's not clear to me that he was actually forcing himself into her life. It feels more to me, being that she didn't want to call the cops on him, that they were in some kind of relationship, even if he was with another woman. Maybe it was something that was a secret or something. I just don't know. What I'd want to know is, how did he even know that, being that he not next door, he was like through a woods and the houses can't even see each other. How did he even know that Echo moved in over there? I don't know. That's the other thing, because the way the daughter portrays it is, yeah, I was over there. He just came out of the woods one day to say hi. Well, how did he even know that somebody new had moved in over there, and it was a woman, and it wasn't some old guy? I'd certainly like some information regarding that. That catches my attention. I don't know anything about Sia's Taylor. I don't know anything. I know Plant City very well, Becky, but I don't know anything about that. Louise, don't know that question either. Louise, what about the partner? What the partner thought about this guy spending all that time? Don't know. She's thinking of another person named Lloyd that is missing. Sia Taylor, Erica Lloyd. Yeah, that's something totally different from California. Yeah, Erica, Echo. Yeah. All right. So that's just some general coverage of Echo's disappearance. Hopefully she is found alive and well tomorrow. If not, and if we get to the year anniversary, I guess I'll get my chance to talk to her daughter as well. But I'm feeling we'll have more information if it goes that long. Let me answer the next question. Kim, is Kim in here? I think she is. She asked me, does the camel have his own parking space? I always make jokes on Wednesdays about the camel, being that it's hump day. Kim, he does not have his own parking space, because that would mean that he would have to be outside. And the camel doesn't want to be outside. He wants to be inside. Although I see what you're saying, because camels can be modes of transportation, especially in the Middle East. This camel ain't having none of that. Nobody's riding. This camel will not allow anybody to ride him. He thinks he's a person. So he stays inside. He has his own bed. And he doesn't have his own parking space because he doesn't consider himself to be a mode of transportation. He's a person. Good question, though. All right, let's go back up here. And I mentioned already that I've already started putting this episode together for next Friday. We got update episode number 7 happening next Friday. So that will be Christmas Day. That's my gift to all of you. And it's just going through all of the disappearances today, just going through them, jotting down some notes. There's more disappearances to talk about than I would have expected. You can expect me to talk more about Robbie Hurt. Of course, with those remains being found, we don't know if it's him or not, but I got to talk about it. Of course, Eric Franks' car being discovered back in December is going to be a long discussion. And so we certainly have, I certainly have a lot to discuss. More than I thought I was going to. Once I started going down through all the list of all the disappearances, I was like, oh, yeah. I don't know how long the episode's going to be, but it's probably going to be longer than I thought. And that's good news. We like having updates because we believe that with these updates, we're getting one step closer to getting all of these solved. So just wanted to tell you, yes, next Friday, even though it's Christmas, you will have an update episode. In fact, I'm going to probably record it this coming weekend because even though my dad is here, I'm planning to go over and see my sister the beginning of next week, kind of like Monday through Wednesday. She's going to be in Orlando again. Alice says maybe the neighbor was watching the place from the woods. Maybe, but why was he watching it in the first place? That very well could be. But why was he watching it in the first place? He had to have known that somebody new was moving in there. I just wonder how he would know that. It would be like me knowing that somebody moved in way down the street. Of course, I wouldn't know that. All right, Carrie. Okay, you two. Crazy. Louise says, I thought there was only a few houses in the Woody area, so people would know a person was moving in. I think she had been prior to moving in doing things to the home, paint it. Yeah, but my impression, Louise, is that where this guy was living at the time, her house could not be seen from his house because there was a bunch of woods in the way. He would have had to have gone out of his way to check it out and then actually see that a woman was living there. I'd just like to know more about maybe there's some very, very simple explanation for this. I just don't know what that explanation is. Carrie says, I will listen, comment at red lights. Okay, you watch yourself, Carrie. I want to talk about this. If you haven't noticed, last week I got up on my soapbox regarding NAMUS. And there was a big fear out there that NAMUS was going away. And the University of North Texas was not going to be handling it anymore. And a lot of people up in arms. And it all came from a post. And I'm going to just say his name now. And the reason I'm going to do this, you'll find out in a second. I did not name this guy last week, but I will name him now. The guy's name was Dustin Driscoll, and he works for NAMUS or for the University of North Texas in this department that has gotten this award to run NAMUS. And he was the one who put out this post last week in which I commented on it. And I told all of you, there seem to be some things going on here that maybe the public doesn't understand. It seems to me this post by this guy, Dustin, he's saying something, but he's not saying something. He's not giving any specifics. And in fact, as I read to you last week, there was a comment or there was a press release by the actual government official who oversees NAMUS in the Justice Department. And what did this guy say? And I think I read that sentence 5 different times. NAMUS, the National Institute of Justice, had tried to give the $4.3 million to the University of North Texas to continue running NAMUS, and UNT would not accept it. Now, does that sound like what Dustin Driscoll posted like 10 days ago, in which he was saying that NAMUS might go away and we might not be able to handle it anymore? Does that sound like he was telling the truth? We should know something. I just checked today. Dustin Driscoll deleted that post on his Facebook page. It's not there anymore. And of course, that always gets me suspicious as well. That you go out there, of course, as we know, that post was reposted and shared and copied and pasted all over missing persons site, all over Facebook, all over Web Sleuths, everywhere. That one post that this guy made got everybody up in arms, fearful, stressed out, especially family members. And then he goes and deletes it. So this is the reason that I decided if he hadn't deleted it and he was going to stick by it and left that post up there on his Facebook page, I would not have mentioned his name. But being that he got everybody outraged and stressed out and everything else, and then you find out that what he posted wasn't necessarily true, and then he deletes it, that person deserves to have his name mentioned. And being that it was public in the Facebook, it's not like I'm slandering him or anything. He's the one that posted it. He got to choose his own words. He chose words that immediately, as soon as I read them, it seemed suspicious to me because there were no specifics in it. And when the specifics did come out, they were the opposite of what this guy wrote and the generalities that he put forth on his own Facebook page. And then on top of everything else, he goes and deletes the post as if he never wrote it. Eileen says, well, now Dustin is trying to keep his job. That very well may be the case. That very well may be the case, Eileen, but we don't forget. I certainly don't forget. Because as soon as I read it, it just smelled fishy to me. It just smelled fishy. And, there were at least a couple guests of Unfound that I just had to tell them in private. What you think he wrote is not actually what he wrote. This sounds more like a used car salesman than it does somebody who really likes to work in facts. Trying to get, I don't know necessarily why he did it. My best guess is University of North Texas just wanted more money. I mean, what else is there? What else could there be? Because once again, if you remember what I read last week, the head of NAMUS, who's actually a government official, said, yeah, we're trying to give them the $4.3 million and they won't take it. So why wouldn't somebody take $4.3 million? I would take $4.3 million. I think the richest person in the world would take $4.3 million if it was given to him or her. However, a reason a person might not take that money is if they're thinking, well, maybe I can get more. But that's not what Dustin Driscoll wrote. And I don't even know if that's the truth. But there can only be so many reasons why they wouldn't take that money. On top of the fact then to put that and make sense of it, along with the fact that he deleted his own post that got everybody outraged in the first place. There can only be so many choices. So it was kind of the, one thing on top of the other. I guess I shouldn't maybe be surprised that he deleted it. Maybe he got in trouble for posting it. Maybe he's now been fired for it. I don't know. But I would certainly respect a person like that more if when the person did the original post, there were specifics and not just generalities. Because generalities, what happens is when you only type in generalities, it gets people's wheels spinning. Whereas if he would have written, I'm just as an example, I don't know that this happened. If he would have written, we're having a hard time getting together with NAMUS because they want to give us $4.3 million for this upcoming 2021, whereas some of our costs are going up and we don't want to let anybody go. We need all these people to do the work. And so we're asking for $4.8 million. And so we're kind of in an impasse right now. They only want to award $4.3 million. We would like more like $4.8 million. And I think everybody can understand that. Maybe some people think, well, maybe University of North Texas just needs to control their costs a little bit more. And other people might think, well, you know what? It's the federal government. It's a $5 trillion budget. Surely they can find $500,000 somewhere. There would be people that would come down on both sides. Where I think that, what Dustin posted smelled like propaganda to me. And I said so. And what do you know, the next day, I'm not saying I caused it, but the next day, University of North Texas takes the money. And then Dustin's post just disappears. It gets memory hold. It just kind of sounds like a little bit of propaganda to me, and there might have been a competition going on, and it just smelled kind of slimy to me. It felt all slimy. And then on top of the ultimate slimy part was he deleted the post after he knew how many hundreds, if not thousands of people copied and shared it, believing him. There's no reason to delete something if it's the truth. Just remember that. No need to erase something if it's the truth. The only way you delete something or erase it, if it turns out it might not have been true and it might have been propaganda or something else. That's the way I look at it. And I'm posting stuff online and saying stuff online all the time. So it's just, and what it did, there's these guests who are on Unfound, they're in a delicate emotional state already as it is. They don't need propaganda to push them even farther into that horrible emotional state. And that's exactly what that did. Exactly, 100%. Because I saw some of them, how they reacted to it. They don't need that. Don't do that. All right. Delane says the best thing to do would have been to apologize and post a retraction. I think so, Delane. Tammy, you need to be an investigative journalist. You smell. Well, I kind of am an investigative journalist, Tammy. Kinda. I'd like to think so. Your smell fishy detector works well. Well, I think what helps, Tammy, is I used to be a used car salesman way back in the day. I used to be in the car business. That helps. Louise says, I was asked to sign a petition. Cannot remember who sent it. Also donation. Kristen, thank you very much. Kristen, donating $49.99. Kristen, you're very, very charitable and very sincere and very giving. I cannot thank you enough. Thank you for the super chat contribution. Thank you so much. Kristen, we're going to keep doing our work. Thank you for thinking that it's amazing. Sheree says, I honestly think Dustin didn't know. He just works there. He has no control over that. Well, he should have, very well may be, Sheree. True, I agree. He should have just went out about it differently. I do understand how things happen, though. Working for a government agency, I would never post our business. And if I did, I would be fired. Yeah. Just the way being that I write every week, at least 3,000 words, it's obvious to me, and what he wrote there was planned out. That was not just some rant. Had nice paragraphs. Everything was spelled correctly. The punctuation was good and everything else. This is something that he planned. He worked on that post for at least a half hour. He really was trying to get something across. And after all that, he deletes it. Louisa, May got sent out on Facebook and escalated. You know what social media is? Well, we all know that. It's totally true, Louisa. Louise, that's why we always have to be careful what we post and what we say. But like I said, this was not some rant. It was not like one paragraph, no punctuation, like you see so many times when people go on rants on social media. This was something that was edited, I'm sure rewritten a couple times. The punctuation was checked. The spelling was checked. The paragraphs were nice and neat forms, so it wasn't all jumbled up. This was planned out. It was planned. And at no point in planning that did this guy think, do you think this is the best thing to do? Because if it was a rant and it was very emotional, spur of the moment, and you get the feeling of that, then you can kind of excuse it. This is obviously planned. Obviously. Eileen says, I think he heard something internally, then reacted emotionally. Now just wants to keep his job and is trying to clean it up a bit. Well, good luck with that. Hard to backpedal on social media. Totally true. Ruth is, yes, true. It just gets deeper and harder to get out of. In other news, Kristen is amazing. Eileen, Christine is amazing. Lane, same goes for privately held businesses also. Yeah. Hey, you know me. I say all sorts of things on this live show every week. As you can tell, I do most of it off the top of my head, even though I have an outline over here to the left on my other computer. I'm responsible for every single thing that I say on this live show. And you will not, I've been doing this for over 3 years. Although the episodes may be edited and everything else, and I get to plan what I'm going to say word by word. At least for my part of the program, not the interview part, but my part of it where I just record myself. When it comes to this live show, I just have some topics and I do the rest of it off the top of my head. And I can assure you, in over 3 years of doing this, never once have I gone back and edited a video after the fact because I said something that I shouldn't have said. Not once. It would never occur to me. It would never occur to me. Thank you, Satin B. So I just didn't like it. If the people at UNT are having problems with NAMUS, they're not getting enough money and everything else, they should just keep it between themselves. No need to air that and get these people, these family members who are already stressed out, even stressed more. There's no reason to do that at all. At all. You keep it in-house. You leave the guests and their emotions and asking for support and in writing letters and emailing and everything else. That only gets these people who've had some of the worst things happen to them in the history of the world. It only gets them more upset. Don't do that. Especially when it may be that you're doing something for alternative motives, and not saying that you're lying, but you're keeping it general enough that it allows people to start painting their own pictures in their head. Don't do that. Let's move on to this. This is another disappearance, and I've already told Emily that I want her to start kind of looking into this, do some preliminary work, because we're not yet to a year since this disappearance. But a disappearance that continues to catch my attention that I check back on every once in a while is the disappearance of Abby Flynn from Gloucester. I know it looks like Gloucester, but I think it's Gloucester, Massachusetts. This is the woman who disappeared on Super Bowl Sunday. She was going to be having a party at her house, so this would have been February of this year. And there were some friends coming over, and they got there at like 6 o'clock. The oven was still warm. Her car was there. She wasn't there. Never seen again. The other fact is that I guess at 4 o'clock, 2 hours before that, she had called her son or talked to her son, and she said that she was going to be taking a walk. Take a little walk before everybody. I guess maybe her cooking was done or she had some time or something, and she was going to take a walk and then get ready for these people who were coming at 6. Friends got there, oven still warm, gone. Nobody saw her walking. There's no allegation she was married, but I guess the police must be satisfied with the idea that her husband was in Houston, Texas at the time. She does live near water, but in looking at it from satellite view, that if she went into the water, it wasn't like she was next to a river. These were, the Atlantic Ocean is right there with beaches. If she went into the water, she would have had to walk into it on purpose. So this is a disappearance that I am really keeping an eye on. I don't know much about the cell phone information, ping information. I don't know anything right at this point about, is it possible that she was having problems with a neighbor or somebody? Of course, extensive searches were done in the area, and it's really not that wooded. There's certainly some woods and forests in the area, but nothing really, really thick. It seems to me it's a fairly populated area with houses, and there were houses right next to her house on each side and many side streets. Just don't know. This is it's a puzzler. And so I've been keeping an eye on it all year. And I've told Emily, see what you can start to do to try and find somebody in Abby's family or a friend, just anybody who's been doing interviews regarding her disappearance so that when we do get to that year mark, which would be in February, that we can get ready to cover this disappearance. Because like I said, it's one that I think has gotten a lot of attention. It's a stumper. It's very unique, unique disappearance compared to most of the others that we've covered. There's no allegations of infidelity or drugs, anything like that. And especially when you consider that she was going to be having this party, expecting people to be there in a couple hours, and then she's not there when she shows up, and she's never seen again. So if you're not familiar with that disappearance, Abby Flynn from Gloucester, Massachusetts, she disappeared on Super Bowl Sunday back in February. One more question I'm going to answer, and then we're going to go through this Friday's episode. Ed gets to speak his mind. Sometimes I have to be censored, though. Yeah, well, that's just the way it is, Carrie. One of these days, if you are the boss of your own podcast, then you can say whatever you want. Louise says, I've been worked with a couple people who have been sacked over things they've said on social media. Yeah. Gets monitored also by the police. Ruth says, I've worked for the feds over 20 years. Workmates posted something on Facebook and our manager got a call less than 5 minutes later. Cherie says, I was going to say I've deleted a few of my comments. I've gotten better though. Take a deep breath and then respond. Most of the time I just stay quiet. Yeah, I think that's kind of how I handle things too, Cherie. It's sometimes. Eileen, did the guests all just show up at her home and she wasn't there? That's right. They got there at 6:00 expecting her to be there to watch the game, eat some great food, and she wasn't there. Gone. Car was there. I'm not sure what else was there. Was her phone there? Was her purse there? Didn't write that down, but she was gone. Louise, did she lend her son the car because he was not working? Somebody came to her house about 4 a.m. or p.m. Her friend rang the police to report her missing. The way I rate it, Louise, is she talked to her son on the phone at 4:00, and then the friend showed up at 6. She had no coat or shoes on. It was freezing cold. No Massachusetts disappearances on Unfound yet. That's right, Cherie. Cherie knows. We have not covered any disappearances from Massachusetts yet. But you should know, Cherie, I'm also working on, just talked to the person, the mother yesterday. We're working on a disappearance from Delaware as well. And I don't think we've done a Delaware. Maybe we did. I don't know. I don't think we've done a Delaware disappearance yet either. So that may be happening. Cherie, we may get to cover a couple more states in 2021. Would like to cover all 50 eventually. Edna asked me, why does it feel like law enforcement just don't do their jobs in these missing persons cases? I would say that's a hard question to answer, Edna. I think that there's a lot of different reasons. First of all, just because we perceive something doesn't mean it's true. I think over time we do learn that factually, yes, some police departments really dropped the ball. The other issue is that sometimes law enforcement just doesn't know what to do. They have no experience dealing with the disappearance in which the person has been missing like for a week. Most police officers in their careers, if they do handle a missing persons report, the person usually shows up either alive, deceased within a few days. Anything beyond a few days, let's say 4 days, 7 days, 2 weeks, fairly rare. So rare that it's very possible most police officers, they could have 25-year careers and never come across a case like that at all. Even though we know it happens and we know there are many unsolved ones, but we are also in a country of 330 million people. So they just don't have a lot of experience in the missing persons area of long-term disappearances. A person doesn't come back in a few days. And as I continue to state, the big problem we have in disappearances, not just in the United States, but anywhere, is that the disappearance of a person who is going to come back in 2 days at the beginning, in those first 24 hours, looks the same, feels the same, sounds the same as the person who doesn't come back at all. And somehow we need a better way of determining those people who are going to show back up in a couple days and the people who are going to go missing for a lot longer than that. That should be the goal. How do you do that? I think asking better questions. I think that we eventually have to get algorithms, and somebody has to do a really in-depth study of all unsolved missing persons cases to see if there's some patterns there that we as humans can't naturally see. I think there are ways that we can certainly change it at least a little bit. I mean, even just 10 or 15% would be quite a bit. But so what it feels like and what it is, Edna, could be two different things. Certainly there are instances where law enforcement has not done enough and they really dropped the ball. There are other instances where they just don't know what to do. Mainly because adults, at least in the United States, are allowed to walk out of their lives. So how are they supposed to cover something that's not even a crime? May not be a crime. Maybe if there's foul play, maybe if it was a murder. But what if that's not obvious? It's tough. This is why, although I'm very hard on police because I believe a lot of times they don't take these things seriously, but I think have an understanding of the very difficult predicament that they are put in. I think you can feel both ways. Her phone was there, Chanda, Abby's phone. Thank you. Okay. Becky, should be classes on how to work missing persons, new and cold. We need to change the law on private property searches somehow. You may be able to change that somewhere, Becky. In the United States, though, we know that private property rights are very prominent. It's going to be tough. Tammy, why do you think Abby Flynn disappearance hasn't been covered as much as others as Susan Morphews? Abby's situation seems like a true mystery. I just don't know what to tell you regarding that, Tammy. I don't know. I'm not sure I have a good answer for you. To me, as you know, I don't like to put superlatives on disappearances. It seems to me, though, that Abby Flynn's is a little more perplexing than Suzanne Morphews to me. Other people might think differently. Chanda, it's a Facebook page that says that their phone was at her home. Thank you. Charlotte, I think they need to take the cases more seriously from the beginning. Easy to say, difficult to do, Charlotte. Louise, her purse, phone, coach shoes were there at the home. I watched it the other night. Her son is called Nate. Okay. Thanks. All right, let's get to this Friday's episode, the disappearance of Bonnie Santiago. We're going back to Virginia, maybe for the third or fourth time. Albemarle County in Charlottesville, Virginia. The guest will be Bonnie's daughter, Gabrielle Adams, who I interviewed last week. Bonnie disappeared in the very early morning hours of July 12th, 2014. So the disappearance is 6.5 years old. The title for the episode is Information Paradox. And the reason that is that Bonnie's, at least on the surface, plays out very much like Angela Green's or Marion Hurley's two disappearances we covered recently, in that these women, the men in their lives claim that, yeah, she just took off. She got in a car and left. Of course, with Angela Green, she was at a hospital and she died, and then the husband doesn't want to say where she was buried or anything else. I don't think anybody believes that. On the surface, Bonnie's disappearance is very much like that. Her boyfriend Javier says that she and he got in a fight and she stormed out of the house. You start thinking, well, how can we believe that? I agree. And we quickly jump, to a conclusion that we think that Javier's lying and he probably did something to her. But then you're going to hear a lot more information that might not back that up, because what happens is that when police did show up, Bonnie was driving a friend of hers van, and when they had to break into the van because the keys were missing. They found Bonnie's phone in the car or in the van. They found her flip-flops. They found her medication, but they also found some blood that is believed to be hers, although we don't have any DNA proof to back that up. And they also found a footprint of hers on the passenger side windshield on the inside, which could lead you to believe that she really did walk off. She walked out of the house, went out to the van, and was maybe sleeping in the van because Javier pissed her off, and somebody else did something to her. You know, we don't theorize in the episode, and this is one of those, the reason this is called an information paradox is because you hear the general facts, you think one thing, but after that, more information you hear, the less we are assured of what actually happened, whereas it's usually the opposite. The more information you get, the more you can narrow down the choices. Whereas it seems, I think, in Bonnie's disappearance, the more facts you're going to hear, the more it opens up to more possibilities. And that's why this episode is called Information Paradox. Once again, Bonnie Santiago disappeared from Albemarle County in Virginia in the early morning hours, July 12th, 2014. Her daughter, Gabrielle Adams, is the guest. Title of the episode is Information Paradox. So that's all I got for tonight. Did the intro, talked about my dad being here, getting together with Lisa Kassoon and her sister and her husband yesterday. Of course, talked about the death of my assistant Heather's husband. Chelsea Cobo pole remains found in the area where Robbie Hurt's truck was on the side of the road. Rules about posting in the group. Unfound on the Ground at number 6 is now available to everybody on YouTube. Alan White from Unfound Now, still missing. Alyssa Turney's, the trial for Michael Turney was supposed to start today. Of course, that didn't happen. Talked about NAMUS. Update episode next Friday, December 25th. Talked about Abby Flynn. Talked about Echo Lloyd. And then talked about the episode for this Friday. Took a bunch of questions regarding music and Christmas and everything else. It was a fantastic show. And now it's done. So thank you all. Hope you all have a great week. You will hear the episode on Friday. It's going to come out its regular time, 2 p.m. Eastern. And I hope you have all your Christmas shopping done. I've done some of my Christmas shopping. Still have to do some more. Thank you all. Thank you for the support. Kristen, thank you for the very, very, very generous donation through Super Chat tonight. Once again, if you'd like to contribute to the program, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast or paypal.me/Unfound Podcast. Please like this video before you leave tonight. Subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you later. Good night.